Well, welcome to Prepper Talk Radio. It is a fabulous Friday morning. I'm spiking the mics already.
We're not very good at this yet.
Just a little bit. It's different every day. You are listening to the one and only radio show in America that's radio for the ready-minded. We broadcast every Friday from 10 to 11, and today we have a special guest, our sponsor, Survival Medical, John, the big chief over there.
Hey, howdy.
Joining us in studio as we talk today about preparedness. What it means to be prepared to us may be different than what it means to be prepared for you, but we welcome those discussions. We want you to call in. We want you to feel part of the
lifestyle, the conversation.
Yeah.
Did you hear that the director of FEMA has been saying, I saw an article on this the other day, so I'm not totally up to date on it, but he's been saying Americans need to have more of a preparedness mindset, lifestyle. He actually came out and said that, and nobody's listening to him.
I'm in the habit of not listening to FEMA.
Well, me too, but I thought that was quite...
Well, it's the non-preppers that need to pay attention to that statement and then move forward past it and listen to
that's true.
Right? It's funny because he actually said, nobody really wants to hear or have someone show up to their doorstep and say, hey, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, because we all know how that works. But if more people would be self-reliant, we wouldn't have the situations that we have.
It wouldn't take so much heat for not doing their job, right?
Well, it all comes down to our personal responsibility for ourselves. Nobody else is responsible to take care of you but you. And except unless you're a baby, then it's your mom and dad. But other than that, once you can function
or a liberal.
around, let's
turn us down here a little bit.
Say that again.
Or a liberal, yeah.
Or a liberal. There you go. There's always
go that way. Let's stay over there.
There's always somebody that wants to jump in and air quotes here, help. Right? So in our effort to help, without air quotes, we're going to talk about food today. One of my favorite topics in the world. I've exposed these guys to some of the best burgers that I've ever come across.
Yeah,
not the food we're talking about.
We've gone to.
You could freeze dry that.
You could freeze dry that.
Yeah.
We just need a harvest right for that. Not too hard to get, but we're going to be talking about not the go get gourmet food that you maybe Ruth's Chris and all that other fun stuff. We're going to talk about like survival gourmet foods, as well as the what you want to put in your backpack for your bug out moment, because there's different use for different things, and you want to make sure you're getting what makes sense for you. And between the three of us, we've probably had just about every brand out there,
probably
or
so.
more,
Probably so,
and brands that are shut down.
Yep, and brands that don't exist yet.
And brands, yes.
That's true.
Yes. So that is what we'll be talking about today, as well as kind of some of the other staple things you should be doing anyways.
Yeah, I think the thing that brought this to my mind, I thought we should talk about food storage again, was the events of the recent past year. And in particular, I guess, really the September 23rd, right? Mm-hmm. That was a strange week before that day. I had people contacting me, said, Shane, what should I do for food storage? What stove should I get? What water filter? Like, well, isn't it a little late? I mean, yeah, you've got a few days left, right, till September 23rd, the end of the world. But
you order it, it gets shipped after the end of the world, and then who's going to get it?
Exactly. So, I mean, anyway, so that's what
that happened recently with my brother down in Tampa. About 3 days before Irma, he's all, hey, can you send me some first aid kits?
Oh, yeah.
And so we tried, and it was like, I don't remember the exact dates, but let's say, we shipped it on a Monday and the hurricane was supposed to hit on Friday, right? And UPS guaranteed it there 3 days later. It showed up like 5 days after.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was just a mess because the whole world was shipping things down there,
Yeah, and trucking altogether is pretty well messed up, so. Between Texas and Florida, and that's quite the disruption.
Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, we've had a lot of disasters lately. It almost seems as if the biblical prophecies are coming true.
Well, we kind of talked about that last week with Ben Davidson, that this grand solar minimum that we're not quite in yet is going to ensure that these disasters are more prevalent and even worse. Yep. And we're not even there yet, and we're still seeing quite a bit. So the time we talk about the survival rules of three, right? We talk about shelter, water, food, right? So this is the food topic that if you're not prepared, it's going to be too late.
Yeah. I mean, you can survive quite a long time as long as you've got shelter and water. But eventually you do need to eat.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing that relies into that is, the X factor there that you can't quantify is the psychological effect it'd have on you. Like, okay, yeah, you can go 30 days without eating. But I don't know about you, but like, I go a half a day and I get hangry, so it's, I think that's a big part of it that you've got to, that's an X factor. Okay. Yeah. Your body can survive 30 days without food, but in a stressful situation, where, the world's unraveling from whatever reason around you, and your kids are hungry for 2 days, let's not act like that's going to be a survivable situation. You're going to go nuts. You're going to make bad decisions. Things are going to happen there that you can't quantify. So, I mean, while it's easy to say, oh, you can go 30 days without food, tell that to your 10-year-old.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
I think it's kind of fun because let me readdress that.
Is fun the right word?
Why I say fun? There's tools you can use that can help you kind of test to see what you're willing to do, what you're willing to handle. Shane, you keep giving me fingers and pointing at stuff.
I'm just not hearing myself in my headphones, so I'm the other mic. I'm the other one. Number 2.
Oh,
that's John. Okay, there we go. That's better.
I thought it was opposite.
You just don't want to hear from me today. I know you just want to.
I changed it because he was spiking. I kept bringing it down, but it wasn't that one.
Yeah, wrong way. There we go. Okay. Now I can watch my needle. There we go. That's good.
John, say something important.
Something important. All right.
Okay, cool.
Testing.
Okay, so back to the word fun.
Okay.
I say fun because there's games and things like Conflicted that you can kind of test out what your mental fortitude would be in those scenarios. You're not truly testing it. You're just quizzing it, right? Some of the scenarios are, okay, a family comes up to you with 2 small children. They're starving. What do? You've got extra, but it means that you don't have enough later on. Right. There's going to be some moral dilemmas, and especially when you're hungry, gray lines disappear. Black and white no longer, no longer exists in some cases because you're so hungry. You're so in need. You're so willing to do whatever you need to do to make sure your kids are fed.
Or you're so protective of your stuff at that point that...
Well, I think it's just hard to get into that mindset. I watched a video yesterday that Angry American posted on his on one of his social media pages, and it was showing his big, awesome new Ford F-350 with it was Black Ops edition, and he brought up in there, and it made me think of. He talked about it. One of the reasons he has multiple flares in the truck is if he's in some terrible situation and he has to abandon the vehicle, that he would actually, torch the vehicle. And the question was, well, why would you do that? And he said, well, you never know who's coming behind you, and they might end up using your assets to attack you. So it's better to just, get rid of it. And I thought, man, I'd never thought of.
Yeah.
That never occurred to me before.
Burn it and walk away. Wow. Well, and his books are actually phenomenal when it comes to food. Yeah. If you've read his series, Going Home, he actually teaches you how to cure meats.
That's right.
He teaches you how to make bacon, and that is the best thing in his books. The storyline's phenomenal, but making bacon and having a recipe to do so in his book.
He's actually got a video on his YouTube channel where it shows him processing a pig in his backyard there. So there's a skill that, I mean, even those of us that are hunters, there's a big daggum difference between processing a deer and properly processing, pork to really make use of all of what's there. There's a big difference there.
Yeah, we really take for granted our grocery stores where we can walk in and just go to the meat counter and take whatever slice we want. And
we are disconnected from the food chain, aren't we?
We are.
Absolutely.
Well, it's funny because we process chickens and my wife won't eat them. Oh, no. I'm like, how is this any different than the store? Because I saw that one in the backyard.
That's that's a predominant mentality. That's not just that's not just Jess. I mean, most people are that way. Oh, that's gross when you do.
Well, here's another aspect that has to do with the grand solar minimum is when this really gets into
what's that cool word you're using?
The grand solar minimum.
That's cool.
Less sunshine.
The grand solar minimum.
It's a big little.
What happens is a little mini ice age starts to come around, right? And so growing crops can become more difficult.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm getting to right there.
Sounds like a giant flashlight with a little bulb.
Okay,
grand solar minimum. Okay, so food.
Solar
it is
minimum.
kind of...
We're all over the place today. Thank you for hanging in there with us. When you get the three of us together, it kind of goes awry.
All over the place.
It's quite the apocalyptic conversation.
It's a grand solar minimum.
What does that mean? I know what you're saying.
We'll have to call Ben Davidson on that one.
Get him to explain that a little bit better. But also a point I wanted to make as well is that, we're all preparing for like a financial collapse, right? Mm-hmm. We're buying gold and silver. But when it comes down to it, you obviously can't eat that gold and silver. The food is going to be the most valuable asset, period.
Yeah, I fall into the raw Indian category there. I'm not a proponent of stockpiling silver, gold. I think tangible assets. I'd rather see somebody stockpile extra matches or extra toilet paper or extra rice or extra beans or extra .22 ammunition. It's I think everything's got to have a dual purpose when you're preparing, right? And what's the dual purpose of silver? You're going to build some motherboards, if you don't.
It's actually a great purifier to throw in all your water storage.
Oh, yeah.
It is
I forgot it's a cure-all, my bad.
But, of course, my intent, good one there, Scott.
That's good.
My intent is...
That's why I only have silver and very little amounts of it. Because a 10-ounce bar will go a long way.
Well, you could build a Nazi flying machine with your gold, though, so...
True.
Or a nuclear reactor of some sort.
But I would rather exchange it as quick as I can if I have it.
That's the plan.
And get more stuff. The problem is
where are you going to find the idiot to do that?
Yeah.
There will be plenty, I guarantee you.
Oh, there's plenty of idiots, that's for sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
And there will be for a time, though, where you can exchange that. And that's my hope, is that I'll be able to pay off the house, buy some farmland, get those real tangible assets with something you can't eat, and then you can better support yourself. So
I think it goes back to the adage that if you're planning on being somewhere for a little while, you grow a garden. If you want to be there for a long time, you plant trees. You can harvest, right? And so one of the challenges we have as preppers is a lot of people think, I'm going to have to relocate right away. I'm trying to I'm actually trying to relocate soon anyways, but I'm trying to make sure that wherever I'm going has fruit and nut trees now so that they're mature and producing
when I need to
be there full time.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. I've got a friend, she's got 3 peach trees and 2 apple trees in her backyard. And I actually sold her the house, and I see her posting all of her canning of all these glorious peaches and apples, and she's
peaches
just
are
like
expensive,
and she's just canning like crazy, and it's just so much. And I'm like, I wish I bought that house, but I didn't want to live.
That was the first thing we did. I mean, with our new place,
12 trees.
Yeah, we planted pear and apple and peach just within the first week of moving there. People don't realize the amount of food and really available calories too there. That's
But again, what is a better comfort food than a fresh peach you can pluck off the tree? I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Well, it does get better than that. When you've canned it and you break it open the next spring and you make a Dutch oven cobbler.
There you go.
There you go.
You can tell who the foodie is around here. Who the foodies are.
Is enough to save me for another year. I will survive. I will intentionally survive another year just for that. Hey, we're running out of time. We're heading into our break, but I want to thank our sponsor, Survival Medical. They're the one and only first aid kit you need to have in your car, in your bag, and in your home. And they've got kits that'll last up to 20 years for all of those situations. Stay tuned.
For the grand solar minimum.
That too. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after a message from our other sponsors. We're just going to jump right back into it. Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio, brought to you by Survival Medical, the only first aid kit tougher than nature, and that can withstand a grand solar minimum.
Or maximum.
Or maximum.
Or
a lesser solar maximum. Hey, we're talking about food storage now. We're excited. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the throwaway. The throwaway is your expired stuff, like your expired pre-prepared meals, right? And when I say throwaway, you're not throwing it away. You're storing it away as giveaway.
Okay.
It's still usually good. It just doesn't taste as good, right? It's
less protein, fewer calories.
It's kind of degraded a little bit, so it's going to taste a little. Maybe it tastes a little funky. It's kind of like your freezer burned foods in the freezer.
You can eat it, but
you're not real happy about it.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of keep that around in case someone that you don't like as much needs food. You can still pawn that off on them and feel okay about it. That's my personal opinion on that.
Okay.
But and there's other there's food brands, and we can talk about all these different things. But I kind of want to jump right into what tastes good and what's easier to prepare, and what are the right things, each of us, because we all have kind of different styles of what we're doing.
Yeah, that was a question that I had that people kept asking me this last week, is that, what food should I get? Well, what do you like to eat? That's my first question. Well, I don't know. Get some rice and beans. There's your basics right there, right? So I guess that's my first advice is, stock your shelves. Keep your cupboards
with what you normally eat.
With what you normally eat every day, and get enough on your shelves that you can go 3 months.
When you go to the grocery store, don't buy 1, buy 3.
Exactly. So I put a post on Facebook the other day. Okay, that basically says, okay, are you going shopping or are you going prepping? I think the difference between shopping and prepping is, okay, I only need 1, but I'm going to buy 2. Now you're prepping, right? So, or buy 3 or 4. So build that up so that you get an extra one every time you go there. If you have extra, then you're prepping now.
Well, I think everyone should have a 90-day pantry. And it's all the daily edible stuff. The stuff that you're going through all the time, you should have 90 days worth of that.
You've got some regular stuff that you're always eating, that your kids will always eat, that you rotate through regularly. Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's certain things that you can't have a 90-day supply of.
Sour cream.
It gets more sour, but less creamy.
Milk.
But you can do, we've got tons of powdered milk.
Yep.
And it's funny because actually the other day I broke open a canister. I'm like, oh, we're out of milk. It's Sunday. Clank.
Yep.
And
if you mix it up 10-1 instead of 1-1, like it says on the back, then it tastes really good.
I just do 2-1 and it's awesome. What are you trying to make sludge?
You don't like powdered milk?
I've got powdered milk PTSD.
I'll tell you.
Did you grow up on powdered milk, John?
Yeah. Well, we had on our homestead I grew up on. We had milk goats, and if something happened, they got caught in a cycle where there wasn't fresh milk, then it was powdered milk, and.
Well, okay. Were you eating the old Deseret Industries powdered milk?
I'm guessing. I don't know.
My mom made us grow up on that.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that is the worst powdered milk I'd ever had.
Yeah.
Grab and Go, actually Food for Health, has one that my wife loves. I like Thrive's. They've got some good ones. There's a couple different types of whey-based.
So yeah, you can go
milks.
Get them off the baking aisle at the grocery store, right? They're just not packaged right.
And
last a long time.
Yeah, but those don't taste good.
Rainy Day Foods, they got a great one.
Rainy Day Foods has a good one, and it's kind of like you said, the 10-1 is the ratio.
Some of those products, though, when you get into that dairy, man, there's some cool stuff out there. Have you ever had the Rainy Day Foods nacho cheese powder?
Yes.
Holy smoke! Dude, it's like you're at Maverick.
I'm writing those down.
Pushing the button.
Now,
it's
Rainy
phenomenal.
Day Foods has the oldest looking labels. Their labels have not been changed since 1963, is my guess. But it's good quality food. Actually, we got a caller. Let's take this caller. Hey, thanks for calling in on Prepper Talk Radio. You're live.
Turn him up there, Scott.
Wait, hold on.
Scott's got to turn you on. Hang on a second.
There we go.
Okay,
now you're live. Sorry. I need to push the button.
Hello. Would you be interested in talking about the tax plan, Trump's tax cut plan?
That has nothing to do with food storage and food.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'll call back when you go on to that topic.
Okay. Sounds good.
You.
Another show, another time.
So we're talking food, tasty food versus the not so tasty food. Rainy Day Foods has a lot of really good condiments, powdered, stored for a long time. And it's funny because a lot of the different food storage solutions you go look at, you'll find on the shelves or you'll find online, they don't have condiments, or they don't have your basics, like your
they
seasonings.
Don't have the seasonings to make your food taste good.
Yeah. And so there's the prepackaged meals, which are great. They're great in a pinch, but if you want to really have good food, you got to make your own recipes.
Some are greater than others.
And soon to be greater.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've got for example, food allergies, you don't want to be stockpiling all the stuff you can't eat anyways, because then you're just making a bad situation way worse.
Well, my issue I have with all the freeze-dried foods, I think you need to have some, in addition to filling your cupboards, have some of the freeze-dried or dehydrated foods, because they're quick and they're tasty. But if you have to eat that stuff every single meal, you'll go crazy. I mean,
we're not dogs. We're not designed to have the same meal
there
3
you go.
times a day, 7 days a week. I mean, 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a great comparison there.
I could eat chili every day.
Really?
The people around you couldn't handle you being there.
That's a good point.
I mean, if we're all talking apocalypse, we're going to need more gas masks.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the bunker with me.
But that's a great point. Everybody has their own chili, right? Everybody has their own chili recipe, and to me, they all taste the same. I mean, for the most part.
You mean in the prepackaged food storage?
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
they all
I'm with
taste
you
the same.
there, man. It's they're all pretty much bland.
So why not have your own rice and beans and be able to season them and make them taste the way you want to make them taste, and buy them in bulk. Bulk. Exactly.
We found one of the best ways. My wife, she
Where do you
scoured
get
the
your bulk
internet.
spice from?
So there's a couple different websites that are restaurant suppliers, and we found the best prices.
And then
are
you
with
buy
those
it
guys.
and Mylar seal it yourself, or
yeah, or bucket seal them. Or I mean, there's so many different things. Most of our beans and rice we've Mylar sealed. I'm still working on the rest.
But
of
on
it.
the spices, you do.
But on the
Mylar
spices,
seal, right?
actually, there's a food storage spice company that they're a restaurant supply chain, and they'll ship them to you Mylar sealed.
Oh, nice. 'Cause that's really important. I've found over the years in storing spices, man. I once upon a time I did a bunch I had my own number 10 can sealer, and I did a bunch of herbs and spices in that number 10 can, and sealed it up in there. And like a year later, opened it just a year later, and it tasted like freaking aluminum can. It was gross.
Yeah.
But when you seal those up in a Mylar seal and make sure that you've got the right amount of oxygen absorber in there, that's really important because it's not the same amount of oxygen absorber per weight that you would do in a foodstuff. It's about triple that. You've really got to have some oxygen absorption in there. But heck, I've had some of that I opened up as long as 6 years ago, and it tasted just as fresh the day I bought it. So, that's a big one. I agree. That's the cheap way to food storage, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is go to your local Bishop Storehouse or restaurant supply company and get your your raw ingredients, and then stockpile the heck out of some spices because But again, I think part of that is also learning how to cook, right?
Right. Which we've fallen away from as a society. It's so on demand. We're like, oh, Taco Bell. Oh, Wendy's.
My wife thinks I'm some kind of chef because I can, throw a pot of beans together and throw a bunch of spice in there and make it taste great. But that's just how I grew up. That's because we grew up cooking like that. I never saw a box of mac and cheese in the house when I grew up, or rice-a-roni or hamburger helper. Like, I don't know what this is. Like, you made it from scratch. So I mean, to me, how do you teach people that skill? What's a resource to do that so that they can actually do something with that food storage?
We could never afford Hamburger Helper growing up, so we had Hamburger Assistant, which was the generic off-brand.
I don't even know why they need the hamburger in there.
That's a good
one.
But
I think it's important to talk about the skill of cooking. The skill of seasoning. Seasoning is a skill that in some circles is completely lost. I actually have a set of cousins that they put ketchup on everything. They're in their 20s and 30s, and they're still putting ketchup on everything. That's their go-to seasoning.
Or ranch.
And that's
ranch
just
or ketchup.
Yeah. In Utah,
Jell-O.
ranch is like...
Jell-O?
There you go. I mean, there's so many different things that you can try. Like, I've gotten into a lot of curries in the last couple of years, making my own curries. You can get so creative with food and flavors. And part of the
reason, some of these old flavors like that, you bring up curries, and coming from a health standpoint, you want to talk about a good way to keep your body immune to things. A lot of the spices that are in those curries and stuff, it's part of the design that was there. Because in the old world style of cooking, cooking was actual for health and enjoyment, right? And to sustain you. And so, you would find a way to be able to put 10 cloves of garlic, in a meal and have it be enjoyable because that was a great way to keep yourself healthy in the winter.
Yeah.
And so. In the old world, you saw that combination of health and
it's a good point.
Cooking there come together, and I think it's important to look at recipes like that, Scott, where people are still by ethnic culture are still doing that.
And maybe this is a little advanced for some of us, right? I'm not much of a foodie, so I don't really focus on the cooking aspect of it's more basic. Okay, so fill your cupboards, right? 3 months worth, and then the next step, if you ask me, is to get bulk rice, bulk beans, bulk wheat, right? But that's really bland. I mean, how do you make that taste good? The most basic way to do that is to add salt.
Yeah.
Salt
and pepper.
Salt and pepper. Peppercorn. Peppercorn, right?
Lots of Louisiana hot sauce.
That's right.
So if you want to make some Buffalo Wild Wing of your own, you got to have some hot sauce.
So add a lot of salt to your food storage. It's inexpensive, and it has so many uses.
The
beyond
number one underprepared thing is salt.
Exactly. Yeah, and it can be used for curing meats. It can be used for healing wounds. It can be used for so many different things beyond just
to bring more food in.
There we go.
The whole world around us needs salt.
There you go.
You know, a lot of times when we think of today's hunting rules or tactics, and try to apply that to a preparedness situation. But when the fans got the fecal matter on it there, salt is a great way to lure animals right into you.
Toss a salt lick,
a little bit of a salt lick in the backyard, and you're going to have a good amount of food walking right up to you.
Well, fortunately, we have the Great Salt Lake here, right? So
is there a little salt around?
There's a little bit of salt around,
and you can just chow down on those brine shrimp like crazy.
I've never tried
stuck in your teeth. I would imagine. I haven't eaten them.
I just wanted to point that out. Salt is the difference between having trying to eat rice and beans without salt. Ugh.
Well, what's funny is I meet a lot of people that have a year supply of these gourmet foods, freeze dried,
and that's all.
And they don't have a pantry.
Yeah, that's all.
They don't have any wheat. They don't have any rice. They don't have. I think the two things that you need more than anything, I really think, are rice and beans.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot mess up rice and beans.
Very hard.
Still edible.
Well, if you're a foodie, I mean, you can eat it. Yeah, you can.
It's still edible. Then the wheat, I mean, that you can crack wheat, you can boil wheat, but then you can grind it, and you can make a million different things. But it takes a little skill,
practice.
And when I say a little, I mean a little. You don't need to know much to be able to start learning how to use it.
Well, and again, back to your point of taking basic things and turning it into something enjoyable, Shane, is that just the basic thing of with the oils that we should be storing, because there's one a lot of people forget is oils, but a little bit of oil and a little bit of flour and a little bit of pepper, and now you've got a base for a million different awesome sauces that you can turn those bland things, normal things like rice and beans into something really enjoyable. And again, all of that goes back to me. It goes back to the psychology of preparedness. Being able to have an enjoyable meal is going to help your mindset in whatever stressful situation you're finding yourself in.
One of the best local resources for that here in Utah, we've got the food storage lady, Becky Goodrich.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
She does cooking classes for food storage use, and teaches you how to use all those different things. And she's phenomenal. She's at pretty much every expo in Utah for preparedness. So find her, check her out, listen to what she's doing. We've got a caller. Let's take this call. Hey, thanks for calling Prepper Talk Radio. You're on the air. We're talking food storage and food. What have you got for us?
Awesome. I love how you guys are talking about just diversifying food storage and having, the simple, quick stuff, and then having those staples. There's also, just talking about the wheat, there's a lot of different ways that you can prepare it how when you just eat, wheat, it just kind of gives you a stomach ache. So, just knowing that you can soak it and sprout it, not
exactly,
and then dry it out and then grind it into flour. That will help your digestive system a lot better. And also, just using a sourdough starter in your wheat can help make it a lot more digestible.
And nutritionally as well, right? As soon as you sprout that food, now you've got a living food with a whole lot of live enzymes that are activating all the systems in your body. You're absolutely right.
And you can sprout that in 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's also great about that is you can sprout that wheat, and now you've got something to feed your rabbits. If you've got 3 rabbits, you can actually produce more meat than you can with a cow in 1 year. So
or your chickens.
Or your chickens. Yeah, chickens love that stuff. And there's so many things you can utilize that for. So if the wheat's to a point where you're like, I don't really like it anymore, it's past its shelf life or whatever, which if stored right, there's really no shelf life on wheat.
Well, and absolutely, and just to kind of diversify this just a little bit more, so, everybody just throws out their old wheat. We grab it and we crack it and then soak it with a little bit of sourdough start for our chickens, and they gobble it up. I mean, they just love that stuff. So, don't think that just because food, you may not want to eat it, you can still use it.
Yeah, you can turn it into other food, right? I mean, it's the same way with
exactly.
When my mother had sold a farm and we were moving a bunch of old wheat she had canned back in the 70s, it had gone funky smelling to where we didn't want it. But we did exactly that. We cracked it and gave it to the hogs. Cracked it, got it wet, and then and gave it to the hogs, and that turned that old rotten wheat, that
into
was
bacon.
all funky, into bacon. Exactly. How's that for efficiency?
And I think that's the
awesome.
key of self-reliance is learning how to use things when they're past its prime for you. It doesn't mean it's past its usefulness. Right. They
Right.
can
You
always
just have
be
to
used
think a
another
little
way.
bit outside the box.
Absolutely.
You have to have that knowledge. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
call.
great show, guys.
Yeah, thank
Hey,
you.
thanks so much for calling in. Other callers,
worries.
give us a call. Let us know, what are some things that you're doing with food storage that can kind of help make things easier. We're running into our break again. Reminder that we're brought to you by Survival Medical. Thank you for our guest, Jon, from Survival Medical, who's here to teach us his ways of the Missouri backwoods boy. We'll be back after this break, and we'll be talking more food storage. We're just jumping right back into it. Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio, brought to you by Survival Medical. First aid kits tougher than nature.
I love
It's
it when you're here, John. Oh, sorry.
It's your outdoorsman kit, but it's also your preparedness kit. I mean, I think one of my favorite things is when people ask me why I carry them, I'm like, well,
Because you give a kit.
I won't give a kit. I'll keep a kit. But I use those kits often. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I witnessed a car crash, and I was the only one on scene with first aid kit. I actually had my on the move, and I had my backcountry and backcountry extra ultralight, and so I had more than enough to take care of what needed to be taken care of. I mean, I was using the tweezers to pull glass out while we were waiting for the ambulance to get there, and they got there fast. It was
So
awesome.
nice. That's so nice of you.
But today, so go get your first aid kits at survival-medical.com. They're also going to be in stores at the Sportsman's Warehouse soon, which is awesome. One of my favorite local stores.
Yep. Cabela's and Bass Pro will be making a big Survival Medical stock here come February as well.
Nice.
Oh yeah. So get prepared. All right, food. Back on the food topic. We actually missed a caller. You called during the break. Oh, you're back. Let's bring you on. Hey, thanks for calling Prepper Talk Radio. You're on the air with some food conversation. What have you got for us?
Well, the hogs I used to raise, we fed them with the dairy milk
Yeah.
and grain, too. And
Well, I bet you haven't had pork that good in a long time either, have you?
they were pretty tasty.
Yeah.
When the milk goes bad, you give it to the hogs? Is that what you're
No,
talking about, or
it's
just when
fresh.
it's still good?
Fresh
Fresh?
milk.
Oh,
As soon as we juiced the moose, we had about 50 cows. And we give the hogs,
I've
we give
never
the
heard
hogs
that
their-
phrase. Juiced
Well, that's
the
an old
moose.
expression out of the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
That's
we
awesome.
give the hogs their milk, as soon as we got done milking the cows and juicing the moose. But they loved milk, and it had a high fat content, lots of cream.
See, I need to move
Very
so I
tender
can
pork.
Get pigs, because that's
Very
limits don't
tender
allow that.
pork.
And they're good pets, too.
He's
I think
right.
people
You'll
can raise
never
hogs.
have a piece of pork better than what was raised by a dairy farmer. He's absolutely right. If you ever get a chance to buy a homegrown pig from a dairy farmer, don't pass that one up. It's a religious experience eating that sausage.
This Puerto Rico thing,
Yes, sir.
they don't have anything on hand, those people. They didn't prepare nothing. We're out of food. We don't even have truck drivers to bring most of the stuff is already at their port, and they don't have anybody to drive the truck to take it around.
They've been financially repressed for decades, so it's
Well,
difficult for them to prepare.
They sit there and get on TV and yell at us, but they don't even pay. If they pay federal taxes, it's optional. So you know how far that's going to go. They don't pay. It's optional to pay federal. They're American citizens, but they don't have to pay the federal tax if they don't want to.
That's why people are moving down there to start or they were moving down there to start the businesses. So,
But
I don't
their
know how that's gonna
electrical-
be now.
Their electrical grid's a total mess. It was a total mess before it got destroyed.
Everything's messed down there except for the weather and the beautiful beaches, right?
It's a perfect example of things to come that we can experience
I
as well
think it's
if we
gonna
don't get prepared.
I think it's going to get pretty bad. And on Coast tomorrow night or tonight, they're going to talk about the grid.
Oh, yeah.
Might be it's either tonight or two, or
think
just
it's
watch the
tomorrow
next
night,
2 or 3 nights. Might be 2 nights from now, but it's the power grid. Ours is rather fragile,
concern.
but not as bad as theirs. Theirs is just a mess. Fort even got ruined,
Absolutely.
and but they sit and complain and yell at us Americans, and
Well, they're Americans too, so they're
they
yelling
don't
at
pay
themselves.
taxes. They don't
True.
pay taxes. We're going to have to help them, and we got a lot of the food there. Even construction equipment is in those storage things, that they haul on the boats and the.
Yep, the big Conex containers.
And they haven't got any truck. Hell, I used to drive truck. We'll get the bus drivers. Maduro, he can't drive a 14-speed Road Ranger. He doesn't know first. That's automatic transmission.
Yep. Well, hey, thank you so much for your call. We appreciate it.
Comments.
That's a really good point. Talking about people that don't have food or aren't being prepared.
Well, their supplies are there. They just can't get it to them because the government has fallen apart. Which is a
good call to action for the people to be more self-reliant.
You're darn right. Look at the different reaction in Texas when the same type of supplies showed up at the same type of ports, and it got delivered because there was a functioning, intelligent infrastructure there to help deliver that. Which is a good time for me to put a shameless plug in. If we actually elected Craig Bowden here for Senate in Utah, we might be able to have to avoid some of these disasters. So if you haven't heard from him, you should go to Craig for Congress. That's Craig with the number 4 Congress.org and see what a real constitutional option looks like for the state of Utah.
No shame in that.
No shame at all. He's a libertarian, very constitutional in his policies and his beliefs, and
a Marine combat veteran.
Oh, that's right. I forget about that. So when you're thinking about your food storage, when you're thinking about your plan, I also want you to make sure you're adding seeds to the mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rotating your garden. By rotating, I mean changing its location. A lot of people put up a garden in the corner of the yard, and it stays in that corner their entire lives.
You can keep it there. You just got to rotate
the soil
what's
into
being planted there,
and rotate what plants in there, because a lot of people aren't utilizing this really cool thing that we grew up doing, which is you take all of your clippings, you take all of your
compost
food, you take all your food remains, well, not your meat remains, but your vegetables and everything, and you compost it.
That's why these farmers you see as you're driving by, they have these huge compost piles covered by tires and such, right? Mm-hmm. Every year they take some of that and they mix it in with their soil.
And we can
that'd be great if they did. Actually, they just sell it.
Oh, do they?
They sell it and then they spray it with pesticides.
They sell a crop
phosphorus-based chemical back in there.
But I'll tell you, our compost pile that we had when we were growing up, we had accidentally, pure luck, one year grew watermelons out of that compost pile. The best watermelon I've ever had to date was that watermelon. It was so glorious. I'm like,
right out of the compost
pile. And you got to make sure you're turning it. You got to make sure you're mixing it in. But it will rejuvenate that soil. So if you're not moving your garden around, if you're not rotating what you're growing, it gives you a shot. But get seeds. And get seeds of things that you'll actually eat.
It's actually a theme in, the 4th or 5th Rawls novel there. One of the startup businesses that happens post-collapse was a lady that started the Trading Post that really just started because she had a big stockpile of seeds. Mm-hmm. And she ended up creating this big, Trading Post post-collapse based off a seed collection that she had and traded for. That's a big thing is... the varieties too, there's when you go to collecting seeds, there's you want to make sure you're getting rid of the some of the. For instance, if you were to go to your local farm store and buy some corn, it's not going to be the right genotype to where you can save a seed and produce a seed, right?
Right.
So
you want to make sure you're pulling the heirloom seeds in.
Heirlooms in there, exactly.
And then you can, learn how to actually save your own seeds from the heirlooms that you grow.
Exactly.
Because then those seeds will reproduce.
Are there good classes for that here, Scott? Do you know of any?
So the Utah State University Extension actually has classes on that. Yeah. Also, all of the IFA stores rotate that class in as well.
That's fantastic.
So check out the IFAs near you because they do have a class schedule. They've got everything from raising ducks and raising chickens to the different types of vegetation.
That is a difficult skill. I can tell you as a homesteader, that's lived agrarian lifestyle. There's a lot of things that you can read a book and do. When it comes to homesteading, saving seeds is slightly more complicated than it is when you read about it in a book. And to be able to go to a class like that before you need it and do it, tomatoes is a really difficult one. Even though a tomato seed,
there's so many seeds.
It could survive, hell's burning, and a tomato seed will still survive. But actually collecting those and drying them out in a way that you can store it is, it's quite a process. So cucumbers is another one that's really difficult in there to save. So those are fantastic classes. That's really cool. I didn't know IFA did that. Man, good for them.
They also have classes on bees, how to start your own hives. They've got a lot of really good classes. And the nice thing I like about the IFA and the USU programs is it's designed for this region of the United States. You know, IFA is the Intermountain, Farmers Co-op Association, and so it's really geared towards what can we grow here, what can we do here, what kind of animals thrive here, and then they have all the classes around that. So we got another caller. Let's take this caller. Hey, thanks for calling Prepper Talk Radio. We're talking food storage and gardening. What do you got for us?
Well, I hate to call back, but I forgot to mention to you that maybe these floods and stuff are and earthquakes are just a precursor of what's to come.
Oh, absolutely.
Of the solar
and I wonder what the brother they're going to say, Saturday and Sunday, if they'll even bring it up. But I hope they do, and maybe they'll say something about preparedness. That would be good.
Yeah, I think God's being kind to us and giving us some warning to be prepared. That these are signs. Oh, well, maybe we should. And I think with these last 2 hurricanes, there are a lot more preppers out there now that they realize, oh, wow, I really wasn't prepared for this, and I didn't think it could happen to me, but it did. So I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think one of the fun things about preparedness is you learn skills and it increases your confidence. I'm like, the first time I made lasagna from scratch, I was, 9 years old, 10 years old. I was making it with my grandma. And my favorite lasagna is the lasagna she used to make. And now I make that same lasagna. But the confidence builder that I got after making it the second time on my own, the third time on my own, and people actually saying, wow, that's really good, that was huge. And it's still huge. I mean, I still love cooking a meal that I know how to cook really well for anybody because they're going to enjoy it and they're going to appreciate it.
Yeah, and my staple around my house has become my biscuits. I've learned to make some pretty good biscuits, and my kids love them. And
that's a phenomenal skill. You have secured your ticket to my bunker by.
You have a bunker?
Shh, no, don't tell anybody unless you can make really good biscuits, and then tell.
I'm
me.
out.
But yeah, man, that's a difficult thing.
But I need your gravy recipe.
I can do the gravy.
All
you
right,
can do
cool.
the biscuits.
I'll do biscuits, you do gravy.
I've got freeze-dried sausage.
We'll make good wives for somebody, Shane.
All right, Brother Wives. Here we go. New TV show starring Shane and John.
No, I'll pass.
It's going to get awkward fast.
It already's there.
Hey, so do you make your biscuits with like a home ground whole wheat?
I haven't tried that yet. I've just been using unbleached all-purpose.
Will you try it? Try it.
No, I actually did. I did grind. I did
know.
try a small batch with my home, with grinding the wheat. It was pretty good. It wasn't nearly as fluffy, obviously.
But were they hard? Because every time I try to do
it,
not
hard.
With the home ground, it ends up being this. It looks like some item you could just like keep in your saddlebag for a month and pull it out, and it looked the same as the day you baked it.
No, they obviously
it actually turns into a home defense weapon.
Yeah, exactly. It could double as a weapon. Just chuck biscuits at invaders.
No, I did try that, and I actually tried it in my cast iron Dutch oven over coals, and they turned out pretty good. I need to keep practicing, but it turned out pretty decent.
That's awesome.
The fact that you're testing it in your Dutch oven is phenomenal. And that's one of the other things is when you're in a grid down scenario, you're going to have to look at a lot of different new ways to cook that you haven't done before. It's funny because we did Scout Board of Reviews this week, and in the second class and first class, it asked about different cooking methods. And, man, our scouts struggled on those. How did you cook food at scout camp? On a grill. We brought a grill. Did we bring a grill? We didn't bring a grill. A burner. Okay, that's close enough, right? But they don't know how to cook on a fire correctly. They don't think of, there's also the ultralight kits. There's solar ovens. I mean, there's so many different ways you can cook.
A mud oven? You guys ever made a mud oven?
I've never made a mud oven.
I've seen Bert Gummer build a mud oven and cook a rattlesnake in it.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. That's pretty cool how, just the efficiency that you can create with a few sticks, and the cool things that you can bake, with a mud oven.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next on my list is a solar oven.
Absolutely.
Ghost on solar oven. So.
Or once again, you could just avoid all of that preparedness stuff by just making sure that we've got the right officials giving us a constitutional republic so we don't get shut out from the supply chain. And we can just make sure that Craig Bowden gets elected for U.S. Senate. And if you want to find out more about him, you can go to Craig for Congress. That's with the number 4, craigforcongress.org.
He may just save the world.
Hey, guys, it's Scott and Shane at Prepper Talk Radio.